God, most merciful, ever merciful. And may God's peace and blessings be upon His holy Prophet Muhammad and the purified members of his household and progeny. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. As you guys may already know, a few days ago marks the birth anniversary of our second Imam, Imam al Hasan al Zaki, peace upon him and the rest of Ahl al-Bayt. When we go through the history of Ahl al-Bayt, peace upon them all, we notice that perhaps no other Imam's history or biography was affected by as much distortion and lies as that of Imam al Hasan alayhi salam. So they came up with all sorts of fabrications saying that the Imam, for instance, lacked courage and that the Imam liked worldly comforts very much, and that he was a womanizer who divorced many women, and so on and so forth. So inshallah, as we cover some of the highlights of the life of the Imam, we can compare that picture, that image. We're not going to mention each one of those distortions, but it gives us a glimpse of the life of the Imam and the character that he had, as compared to that image that we have seen in some portrayals of the historical image that they've given of the Imam. The Imam did have a lot of enemies in his life and afterwards, and maybe we can keep it for later to talk about why he had a lot more enemies from different angles than many of the other Imams. So if we start from the beginning with the birth of the Imam, we do not have any strong narrations. Actually, we have no narrations at all from Ahl al-Bayt, peace upon them, saying when the Imam was actually born. Islamic history in general says that he was born on the 15th of Ramadan, but we have no narrations from Ahl al-Bayt about that. However, there are two narrations that, if we put together, give us a different idea. One of them being the birth anniversary of Imam al Hasan alayhi salam, where we have authentic narration saying that he was born on the 3rd of Sha'ban. And we also have authentic narrations from Imam al alayhi salam saying that the difference in time between the birth of Imam al Hasan and the birth of Imam al Hussein was about 6 months and 10 days, which brings the birth anniversary of Imam al Hasan alayhi salam at the end of Shahr Rabi' al-Awwal as opposed to Shahr Ramadan. If we maintain that Shahr Ramadan is actually the birth of Imam al Hasan and that it's still 6 months and 10 days difference, then this brings the birth anniversary of Imam al Hussein to Rabi' al-Awwal as well. So regardless of how we look at it, we know that there's something not working in these riwayat, and then depending on which historian you follow, you will have one version or another. Regardless of these details, there is no doubt that the birth of Imam al Hasan alayhi salam marked a very, very joyous occasion in the life of Fatima alayhi salam and Imam Ali and the Holy Prophet. Imam al Hasan was the proof that the lineage of the Holy Prophet was going to actually continue through his daughter Fatima, as the Prophet had already said, and this was the reply in Surah Al-Kawthar, where the mushrikeen, the polytheists of Quraysh, would insult the Prophet by saying that he would not have any lineage. The lineage of the Holy Prophet was, as he had said, through his daughter Fatima, but the Prophet did still have no children from Fatima until Imam al Hasan was born, and this was the proof that there will be a lineage to the Holy Prophet through his daughter, and it would be Imam al Hasan. Right from the very beginning, the attachment of the Holy Prophet to Imam al Hasan alayhi salam was very, very strong, and it was mutual on both sides. So when we look at the life of Imam al Hasan and in relation to the Holy Prophet, it's a very important chapter in Islamic history to be studied for multiple reasons. Perhaps two of the most important being that we have the Holy Prophet actually interacting with a child of his own. So this gives us a foundation to study genuine, it gives us genuine principles and foundations for Islamic upbringing. We have the Holy Prophet interacting with his own child, so we have a lot to learn from that. At the same time, and maybe less from a theoretical perspective, we also have a very religious perspective, being what we call the Sunnah or the Sunan, the rituals that the Holy Prophet applied with Imam al Hasan alayhi salam, and which we still follow today, many of them. So we'll talk a little bit more about those. So among the rituals, we'll just mention one and we won't go into the details. One of the rituals is the naming of the child. So in the riwayat and the narrations, we have that when Imam al Hasan was born, Imam Ali alayhi salam came to Fatima to take his child, and he asked her, what did she name him? And she said that she was not going to precede Imam Ali in naming him. So the Imam took his child and he went to the Holy Prophet. And as soon as the Holy Prophet saw Imam al Hasan, the narrations tell us that he was wrapped in a yellow cloth. So the Holy Prophet said, have I not said never to wrap a child in yellow cloth? Now, of course, today when we read this, there's a whole field called chromotherapy, which is the therapy by colors. That maybe has something to do with this, maybe not, we don't know. There's probably religious meanings. In any case, the Prophet is saying, do not wrap a child in yellow clothing, wrap them in white. So they took Imam al Hasan back and they wrapped him in white and they brought him back to the Prophet, who asked Imam Ali at that time, what did you call your child? And he said, I wasn't going to precede you. And the Holy Prophet said, well, I am not going to precede my Lord. So, this is another lesson, and these are not lessons that we're going to expound on right now, but it also shows that even in these details, now for us this might be a very minor detail. Naming of your child is not a matter of, prayer or fasting where you have to go and see what the religious hukum, what the legal verdict is divinely. And yet we see Imam Ali in the naming of his child, he still won't do it himself, he waits for the Holy Prophet. There's just an absolute submission from Imam Ali alayhi salam throughout his whole life with regards to the Holy Prophet. And we see it in every instance. So this is just one more instance of these. So we have in the narrations that Jibreel alayhi salam comes back to the Holy Prophet and tells him that you shall call your son, or the son of Ali and Fatima, you shall call him by the same name as the son of Harun, Prophet Harun, the brother of Prophet Musa. And this is a whole topic why there is a constant reminder of the analogy between Harun and Imam Ali alayhi salam constantly. That's a topic on its own. So he said, call him Shubba. So the Prophet, peace upon him, said, but my tongue is Arabic. He said, then call him Hasan. There's another lesson for us in here about the etiquette of naming our children. So there's a dimension that is religious. Shubba is a very good religious name, no question about that. Otherwise Jibreel would not have recommended that name. But then the Prophet said, but my tongue, I'm Arabic. So there's a social dimension to naming children as well. This is the name that will stay with this person for their whole life. And we have in our narrations that this is one of the obligations or responsibilities of a father to give a proper name to their son and daughter. So again, something to keep in mind. Other rituals that we're not going to get into are, for instance, that on the seventh day they cut the hair of the child and they weigh it, and they give in charity its equivalent in silver. And they make a sacrifice in the name on behalf of the child. And of course there's a philosophy to all of these. When you give a sacrifice, when you feed a group of 10 or more believers, you're of course creating social cohesion and affection. And these people will remember one more event of this person's life, that I ate from their food or their family's food when they were born, and so on and so forth. And of course in our riwayat they say that this is the equivalent of when you give sadaqah, you push away, it's a protection, you push away tribulation from yourself. And so when you give a sacrifice when a child is born, it's pushing away tribulation for their whole life. And of course there's circumcision, and as we know in Islam, circumcision is well established. There is no discrepancy between the scholars about it. Although, minor detail, circumcision is not a condition for the validity of any of our ritual actions except one. So if someone is not circumcised and they pray, for instance, or they fast, it doesn't invalidate those acts of worship except one, and that one is the pilgrimage. So if someone is not circumcised, they cannot perform the pilgrimage, or if they do, it is not considered valid. Details to be seen in Fiqh. In any case, this was the beginning of the life of Imam al Hasan alayhi salam with the Holy Prophet, who, as we said right from the beginning, the attachment was very strong. We have case after case, and the books are filled with these instances. They say that the Prophet would carry them, Imam al Hasan and then Imam al Hussein as well, all the time. He would carry them on his arms, he would carry them on his shoulders, and when people would say, what a beautiful carriage is carrying you, they would tell Imam Hassan, and the Prophet would reply, and what a good rider they are. And in some other instances we have, and their father is better than they are. Speaking of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And in another narration he says, and I love them and I love everyone who loves them. So these are different narrations. So we see that basically the same thing is happening all the time, and the Prophet is giving different answers, all of them revolving around the same idea. We have other instances, for instance, where we hear that the Holy Prophet, when he would give a sermon in the mosque and he's standing on the pulpit, and Imam al Hasan would enter and he's a little child, the Prophet would interrupt his sermon, come down from the pulpit, carry the Imam, go back on the pulpit and continue while carrying the Imam. And we have multiple narrations of these. In another narration we have that the Holy Prophet, while praying, not alone in their house, I want us to compare this behavior with maybe our behavior with our children too. We have where the Prophet is praying as an Imam in his mosque, when he went to prostration, to sujood, and of course everybody went, the Jama'ah went to sujood behind the Prophet. They don't know what's happening, but they say the Prophet took a very long time to get back up. So after the prayer, they asked the Prophet, was anything revealed during your sujood? Is that why you took longer? And the Prophet replies, no. Al-Hasan or Al-Hasanan came on my back and I did not want to rush them. So I stayed prostrated until they finished playing on my back and they went off and I came back up. These are instances just to show glimpses of the relationship of the Holy Prophet. They say sometimes that the companions would come visit the Holy Prophet late at night. They would knock on the door and the Holy Prophet would come out. He would open the door with his garment covering something. And then they were wondering what's going on, and then he would show that he's carrying Imam al Hasan, or Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, both of them. Which basically tells us that they slept with the Holy Prophet in his house instead of sleeping with Fatima and Ali. It gives us an idea of the attachment, how close, the proximity, and to what extent the Holy Prophet is taking care of every dimension of their upbringing while he was there. And of course, it's very well known that when the Prophet acts and behaves this way in front of all the believers all the time, this love and attachment becomes very well known. They say that there's one of the companions of the Prophet who one day were not told what he did, but we know that he committed a sin. And the Holy Prophet knew about the sin, and so he was too ashamed to come back to the mosque. And this lasted a while, and he's trying to go back, but he's still too ashamed. He doesn't know what to do. And they say he's walking one day in the street, and he saw both Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein in the street. So he had an idea. He carried both of them, and he told them, do you want me to bring you to your grandfather? And they said yes. So he carried them, and he entered the mosque, and he told the Prophet, peace upon you, Prophet. I seek refuge with your two children, and I ask for God's forgiveness through them. And they say that the Holy Prophet smiled to the point of hiding. The Holy Prophet wouldn't show his teeth, and if he did, he wouldn't laugh. He wouldn't make any sound when he laughed. So they say he smiled and to the point of covering his mouth, and then he said, that is the best trick that you could come up with. And then he said, yes, I will forgive you and consider yourself free. And in some of our riwayat, they say this is when the verse was revealed, and if whenever they wrong themselves and they come to you, وَلَوْ أَنَّهُمْ إِذْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ جَاءُوكَ فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا اللَّهَ. So they seek God's forgiveness, and وَاسْتَغْفَرَ لَهُمْ الرَّسُولُ, and the Prophet asks God's forgiveness for them, they would find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clement and forgiving or merciful. So these are glimpses about the childhood of the Imam. And
صلوا على محمد وعلى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
We also have other glimpses when we see how the Prophet was raising them to give them the full personality and preparing them for the future. We usually think of children as, you know, they're unaware, they're immature, they don't understand what's going on, we keep them sheltered, we keep them... The Holy Prophet did the exact same, the exact opposite of this with his own Hassan and Hussein, and we have other narrations about how he behaved with other children. The Holy Prophet respected children, he saluted them, he would, you know, now they think that they reach a certain level of high maturity when they say when you talk to a child, go down, so they don't give them the impression that you're high and they're low. They don't feel intimidated. You go down to their level. They say the Holy Prophet used to do that. He used to say the salam to the children while going down to their level at that time, 14 centuries ago. In any case, when we look at the life of Imam al Hasan alayhi salam, we see, for instance, in one of the letters and the treaties that the Holy Prophet was writing to the kings and the tribes in his time, in one of them he was writing a letter to Taqif, and he was writing the names of the witnesses sitting with him as he writes this, and he wrote Al Hasan ibn Ali, and Imam al Hasan at that time was probably 5 or 6 years old. And we have the very famous instance or incident of the Mubahala, where we know how the Holy Prophet took Imam Ali and Fatima al-Zahra and Hassan al-Hussein with him to do the prayer, the curse prayer, as we can translate it, with the Christians of Najran, who decided not to go into that kind of prayer with the Prophet when they saw what came, when the Prophet came with his daughter and his son-in-law and his 2 grandchildren. And these are instances that we would say are for adults. These are instances that are determinant for a nation, for a state, for a community. And you see that the Holy Prophet is involving very young children in them. So this kind of flips our idea about, do we involve children or not in these things that we might think are more for the adult world and not necessarily for the children world. Basically, the Holy Prophet shows how he gives that full personality and respect to children. So if we move a little bit to afterwards, to after the Holy Prophet. So Imam al Hasan alayhi salam spent about 7 years of his life with the Holy Prophet, after which the Holy Prophet, of course, passed away. And here's where we see that Imam al Hasan alayhi salam was going to be directly exposed to all the events. And he was not sheltered throughout the Holy Prophet, and he was not going to be sheltered afterwards. In fact, he was a very major participant. We have narrations that say that as the Holy Prophet passed away, the second day, he went to the mosque of the Holy Prophet, and this is when Abu Bakr was on the pulpit, and we have a narration saying that Imam al Hasan told him, come down from the pulpit of my father and go on the pulpit of your own father. And Abu Bakr replied, it is indeed the pulpit of your father. Well, of course, he meant father as in grandfather. But it just shows that there's a politicized dimension to Imam al Hasan, and he is 7 years old at this time. And so, if we look at the events that follow, so during the Khilafah of Abu Bakr and then the Khilafah of Umar, we have many instances that start telling us, giving us an idea of the role that the Imam was starting to play in that community. For instance, we have, and this is questionable, I don't know in how much detail I want to go because there's not enough time and there's a lot to cover, but we have some instances in history where they say whether the Imam actually participated or not in the armies that Umar ibn al-Khattab prepared, especially with Persia. A few, 2 or 3 historians are the only ones who mention that, the others do not. One of them being Ibn Khaldun. He says that Imam al Hasan, Imam al Hussein, and if I remember Ibn Abbas, all of them participated in those Futuhat wars. Theologically, from a Shia perspective, there's a major problem with that. It doesn't work for us that an infallible Ma'soom Imam would go in the army with a leader who is not infallible. Even if we want to put aside everything else, that piece just doesn't work theologically. And we know for a fact that never in history was it ever mentioned that Imam Ali alayhi salam was ever part of any of the armies of Abu Bakr or Umar or Uthman, when Imam Ali was known for his courage and what he would do in the field. So in fact, he should have been the leader in in all of those missions, but we have not a single time where he actually participated in one. So this just confirms this stance. While at the same time, he's continued to play that supporting role. He helped wherever he could, and so on and so forth, but he didn't put himself in that position. In the meantime, we also know that the questions would come into the, let's call it the office of the Khilafah, especially during the Khilafah of Umar, because Islam was expanding and the questions and the letters of questions would come from all sorts of places from the world, especially from Rome and various areas of Europe, who were basically trying to intimidate the Muslims and show them that they couldn't answer. And so oftentimes when no one knew how to answer, they would refer people back to Imam Ali alayhi salam, as is well known. But history tells us that the Imam would refer them to Imam al Hasan. So the Imam was already starting to announce the Imamah of Imam al Hasan when the Imam was still at a very young age, and the books of history are filled with these instances where the Imam al Hasan answers many of these, and sometimes Imam Ali alayhi salam actually questions him to force him to explain the hukum to others, to show them that he's not just saying something out of the blue. So he would tell him, why do you say that, or where do you take that hukum from, and the Imam would explain. And then if we move to during the Khilafah of Uthman, as we all know, during the Khilafah of Uthman, the social conditions became very difficult as a result of the corruption of that government. And people got so fed up, there was so much poverty and so many social problems that people got fed up and they complained and they complained and they tried to fix it, and it just got worse and worse to the point where they decided this is the time to kill him. And so the masses attacked the house of Uthman and they trapped him inside the house in an attempt to kill him. And here there's an incident that is, from our standards, very questionable, but it's repeated again and again in history, where they say that Imam Ali alayhi salam, when the attack started on the house of Uthman, he would have sent both Imam Hasan and Imam al Hussein, as well as some of his companions, to protect Uthman. So if we assume that we're going to accept this event as having actually occurred, and the Imam having actually asked both his sons to go and protect Uthman, then how are we to understand this? So first of all, we have to know that we consider Imam Ali alayhi salam to be a divine man, like the Holy Prophet, like other prophets. They are men of peace. So long as there is a way to do things through peace, you do it through peace. You do not do it through bloodshed. Bloodshed is the last resort. It's in self-defense. It's when you're stuck and there's no other way to get something done. And the Holy Quran actually says this. وَإِن جَنَحُوا لِلسِّلْمِ, and he's telling the Holy Prophet, talking about his enemies. And if they lean towards peace, then lean towards peace with them. So the first interpretation of this event is that basically the Imam would send his two sons so that they would calm things down. They would try to talk on the one side to Uthman to force him to tell people that he's going to reform quickly so that the problems would go away. And on the other side, he would calm the Muslims, the masses who are trying to attack Uthman. The second interpretation that is available in the books is basically that they did not attack Uthman when he was in the seat of the government. They didn't attack him in the castles of the government. They attacked him in his house. And in the house, of course, there are children, there are women, there are other people. We can call them today innocent bystanders. People who should not be the aim of those people, the angry masses of people attacking Uthman. They should not go further than that. If their problem is with Uthman, it's between Uthman and them. It shouldn't extend beyond them to anyone else. So a second interpretation is that, so that the extent of any damage that would be done does not reach anyone else beyond Uthman himself, if there is anything to be done. And this is replete in the history of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam from the time of the Holy Prophet, where he protects and takes care of the families of his enemies, to Imam Ali, to Imam Hasan, to Imam Hussein, all the way to all the Imam alayhi salam. We well know that Marwan ibn al-Hakam, who was one of the biggest enemies of Ahl al-Bayt, when he was in Medina after the revolutions of Karbala happened, and people started revolting against anyone who was involved. And Marwan was involved against Imam Ali in the wars and against Imam al Hasan. And he was at that time living in Medina, and Imam al-Sajjad was living there. People attacked Marwan to kill him. And so Marwan took his family and his precious belongings, and he came to the house of Imam al-Sajjad, and he told him, I am entrusting my family with you. And Imam al-Sajjad took them on. And Marwan fled so that he would not be killed. And the Imam al-Sajjad, there is a narration very well known where he says, I swear by Allah that if the killer of my father, meaning the killer of Imam Hussein, the killer of my father would entrust me with his sword, I would give it back to him. So it just gives us an idea of Ahl al-Bayt, and they are not people who hold grudges or work based on vengeance and emotions. They are people who work by principles, divine principles. My problem is with you about this thing. This is the only thing that it doesn't extend to anything beyond that. And again, history is replete with these instances and examples. And if we move to the time when Imam Ali alayhi salam became the Khalifa, at that time Imam al Hasan, of course he was a little bit older, he was basically the main right arm of the Imam. He was the supporter, the ally of the Imam in every step, in every day, in every battle, and the short Khilafah of Imam Ali was full of these. And so of course there are too many instances. If we mention maybe one or two of them, when the battle of the Camel was about to start and people gathered with Aisha to attack Imam Ali alayhi salam under the pretext that they wanted to kill the people who had killed Uthman. Imam Ali was now Khalifa, and he saw this happening and starting. The movement is actually started. So he needs the supporters to move on his side too. So he needs the people of Kufa to act. Well, in Kufa, the person who was responsible there at that time, the governor of Kufa, was Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, who had been appointed there by Uthman. So he disliked Imam Ali, and all of history shows us one instance after another, including in Harb Safin when he became an arbiter and he judged against Imam Ali, and so on and so forth. So basically at that time history tells us Abu Musa al-Ash'ari was telling the people of Kufa, so the orders that were coming from the Imam to get people ready. Abu Musa, as the governor of the Imam in Kufa, was going on the pulpit and telling people, I have myself heard from the Holy Prophet a narration that says that such tribulations will take place, that it is better for someone to be seated than to be standing. And it's better for someone to be sleeping than to be seated. Basically telling people avoid it at all costs, do not get involved, discouraging them from getting involved in any way. But this is going directly against truth is with Ali and Ali is with the truth. The Quran is with Ali and Ali is with the Quran. If he is a scholar and if he is a governor, whether you look at it from a political perspective, this is considered grand treason, where you have your own governor judging and telling people to go against you. And if you look at it religiously, well then religiously, how do you interpret this? In any case, Imam Ali sent Ammar ibn Yasir and his own son Imam al Hasan to Al-Kufa. So Imam al Hasan, when he entered Al-Kufa, he saw Abu Musa on the pulpit. He told him, step down, step away from our pulpit, and step away from our affairs. Basically, he got fired. And Imam al Hasan alayhi salam took the pulpit and he encouraged people and reminded them and prepared them for the war. And they of course obeyed, and they joined the ranks of Imam Ali at that time. And the Battle of Camel was the Battle of Camel. And during the Battle of Camel, historians tell us that the behavior and the actions of Imam al Hasan reminded them of the behavior and actions of Imam Ali when he used to fight under the Holy Prophet. When Abdullah ibn Zubayr stood and gave a sermon basically insulting the army of Imam Ali and explaining why they were being attacked, it was Imam Hassan who stood up and gave a very eloquent speech in reply to him. And then when the war actually started, the altercations actually started, and there are many instances of things we can mention, but to mention one of them, we're told that the Imam, his whole plan, that as he explained it to his whole army, was that he was telling them, bring the camel down. If you bring the camel down, it's the end of the war and you're going to be victorious. So at some point they say when it was getting very heavy and the Imam wants to end it, they say he took his spear and gave it to his son Muhammad ibn al Hanafiya. Muhammad ibn al Hanafiya is the son of Imam Ali, not from Fatima al-Zahra, of course, from a woman who was nicknamed al-Hanafiya. He was a very pious religious man. He was considered one of the top warriors in the Arabs. And what else do you expect from the son of Imam Ali? And Imam Ali loved him very much. And he was considered to be in bodily strength extremely strong. So they say, when they talk about his strength, one example, they say that he had a lot of servants, and when he would get very angry and he wanted to severely punish one of his servants, he would take a metal rod and he would tie it around them, and he would just leave them there. And the problem is no one was able to open this except himself. So the punishment was this until he would come back and forgive them and open it. So it gives us an idea of Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya and his strength. And again, as I said, he was known to be very courageous. He was one of the commanders of Imam Ali in his battles. So the Imam gave the spear to Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya and he told him, attack the camel. The strategy of the people of the camel, the camp of the camel, was that they had put the camel right in the middle of the army. And they had created circles of warriors. The toughest warriors had formed circles around the camel to protect the camel at all costs. Of course, the camel carried Aisha inside. And so these circles were meant to protect the camel so that the last thing that you could reach was the camel, and the army was all around it from every side. So we're told that Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya attacked, and he was able to go through the entire army and reach the inner circles. But no matter how much he tried, he couldn't get to the camel, and he retreated and came back to Imam Ali alayhi salam. So the Imam took this spear, whether it's the same spear or another spear, he gave it to Imam al Hasan and he told him, go to the camel. And the Imam, they say, went through the army, went through all the layers of the warriors that were in front of the camel, and he planted the spear in the chest of the camel and pulled it back out and came back to the Imam alayhi salam. So the historians say by the time he reached the Imam, that his spear was still dripping blood. So when he reached the Imam embraced him. He hugged him very hard and long. And they say this, at this instance, Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya, who of course is Imam Hassan's half-brother, his brother from his father but not his mother, showed disappointment. You know, he failed on his mission. Imam Hassan just went and succeeded in the mission. So Imam Ali alayhi salam right away turned to him and he told him, Muhammad, do not be sad. He is the son of the Prophet and you are the son of Ali.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
So basically he is still showing him that there is a difference. You may be the son of Ali, but he's the son of Ali and Fatima, and he has the grandson, he's the grandson of the Holy Prophet. There is a difference. Do not consider this as a, basically a ding against you, you know. Anyway, so we can't keep going through these instances. We don't have enough time. Imam Ali alayhi salam, as we will hear in the next few days, I am sure, all of you will go to the majalis, was martyred, he was hit, poisoned, and killed. And so in his last dying moments, Imam Ali alayhi salam gathered his entire family and he told them, I'm going to pass down to Al Hasan everything that was passed down to me from the Holy Prophet. And all of you must obey him and take heed, including you, Hussein. And so he was already announcing very clearly who the Imam was after him. The Imam alayhi salam, in his first sermon when he took over the Khilafah, Imam Hassan, and again compare with what history tells us about him, in his first sermon after he talked about Imam Ali alayhi salam, he says, and I will continue on the same path, and I will go to war with Muawiyah and finish what my father started. Muawiyah must be defeated. The problem is that the army of Imam al Hasan alayhi salam was quickly disintegrating. This was an army that fought 3 consecutive wars under Imam Ali alayhi salam. It was not a well-established civil army like Muawiyah had. So at that time they say that numbers under Imam Hassan alayhi salam were at the most about 20,000. And Muawiyah had an army, well, a real army, a civil army, trained, equipped and everything, with between 60,000 and over 100, depending on which reports you take. So obviously, from a military standpoint, there's a gigantic discrepancy. You add to that it's a very tired, exhausted, bored army, where there were many factions fighting between themselves. So the people following the Zubayr were, and this is a whole topic in history, were already part of that group. So those people wanted Zubayr to become Al-Khalifa, and then, or Bani Zubayr in general, to become the Khulafa. And then another group were the leftovers from the Khawarij, who were still hiding in the army of Imam Ali and now of Imam al Hasan. And then Muawiyah's work behind the scenes in bribing each one of the commanders and the influential people in the army of Imam al Hasan alayhi salam. And so if you look in history, the behavior of that army and what they did to the Imam, you would wonder how this is called an army following a leader. They say at some point they attacked the Imam themselves. And the Imam was inside a tent. They attacked him, they hit him with a shovel on his thigh, and it took 2 months to heal that injury. And it hit the bone in the narrations. And we have another narration, and they stole the carpet on which he used to sit and pray. And in his prayer, while he prayed, they actually shot arrows at him, but they didn't plant because the Imam used to wear his dirh, his armor in the prayer. He knows his army. He knows that there's betrayal happening from inside. This was the army that Imam al Hasan was working with against Muawiyah. So what were his options? Option one, he admits defeat, and Muawiyah becomes the legitimate Khalifa because the other claimant to the Khalifa has just admitted defeat. The option two is that he goes to a direct war with Muawiyah, with this army against that army. And what would be the biggest loss in this scenario is that the leftovers, the best of the elites of the companions of the Prophet and who were still with Imam Ali and who had not been killed in these wars, would be killed, including most likely all of Bani Hashim, including Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein, and the others, if they went to direct war with Muawiyah. So what did the Imam do? The Imam proposed, and this is through negotiations, at first through letters, and then in person. Muawiyah actually came. This was done through negotiations. The Imam proposed a peace treaty. So the issue is not specifically the peace treaty itself. The peace treaty is something. It's more studying the conditions that the Imam imposed in that treaty that is of the utmost importance. The Ruwayat, the peace treaty itself in its entirety today does not exist anywhere. We don't know all the conditions that were there. We know a number of these conditions by reading a number of different books of history. We get glimpses of what was in that treaty. But all the conditions, we don't know what they were. No one can say that this was the document. So what did the Imam ask for? The Imam said, first of all, and it was written, and Muawiyah signed it. It said, Imam al Hasan is going to let go of the Khilafah in favor of Muawiyah in exchange for the following conditions. What were the conditions? Condition number one, that upon the death of Muawiyah, the Khilafah automatically transfers to Al Hasan. And if Al Hasan is not alive, it automatically transfers to Al Hussein. Condition number one. Condition number two, that the treasury of Al Kufa remains in the hands of Imam Al Hasan entirely. In addition to Muawiyah sending to the Imam 2 million dinars annually. In addition to Al-Kharaj, which is the taxes and the zakat and the bounties that come out of a piece of land elsewhere. So basically the Imam is ensuring that he has enough funds to sustain a state. Condition 3, that no one except the title of Amir al-Mu'mineen would no longer be used except for Imam Ali alayhi salam. Condition 4, that Imam Ali would never be insulted on the pulpits of the Umayyad ever again. Condition 5, that the Shia would not be tracked down, persecuted, tortured, killed, and that their incomes would not be cut because Muawiyah had stopped the incomes of the orphans and the widows and anyone who associated from close or far with Imam Ali alayhi salam. And there are a number of conditions like those. One of them being that he said Muawiyah shall not be allowed to have a testimony, valid testimony. So basically Muawiyah, his word is not to be trusted. So how can he pray in front of people, and how can he be judged, and how can he call his state Islamic? In any case, basically the conditions of the Imam devoid the validity, the legitimacy of the government of Muawiyah from the true Islamic substance that he was trying to convey. And Muawiyah was forced at that time, because of a lot of conditions, to accept that. So his official stance, but he did sign it. So the treaty is signed, but he says, and the conditions when he came out, and the conditions of Al Hasan are under my 2 feet. Okay? So he's basically already announcing that he's not going to adhere to and respect these conditions. In any case, when Imam alayhi salam did this, it means basically that now he put that aspect of his role on one side. He put in place a treaty, and now if Muawiyah goes against it, he is unmasking himself. He's revealing his true colors, because the treaty is public and everybody knows about it. And then the Imam moved to Medina. And this is where the Imam started a new role. The Imam took on the role of spreading knowledge, of re-establishing the spirituality and the spirit of Islam in people. They say that the Imam, when he went to Al-Medina, the historians tell us that he would start after the morning prayer. After he would finish his morning prayer, he would sit in the mosque of the Holy Prophet, and he would answer questions and teach until the midday prayer, until Salat al-Dhuhr. So there's obviously a gap in that community. Imam Ali alayhi salam had been away in Kufa, Imam Hasan alayhi salam had been away, so now the Imam is re-establishing this. During the day, he fasted all these days. During the night, they say that he would take big bags of food, and he would walk, and he would find orphans and needy and widows and give them the food. And they say that during the day, he would knock on the doors of people who were known to be enemies of Imam Ali, and give them food and give them gifts and give them money when he felt that they were needy, to re-establish the social cohesion and to re-establish the spirit of Islam. And if we go into the worship of the Imam and to the, now we know the Imam performed the pilgrimage 25 times walking on foot. He would not ever ride his camel or his horse when he performed it, and people would come to the Imam and tell him, you cannot walk because people are ashamed to walk beside you and be on their camels and their horses. They're too tired to keep walking. And so the Imam, he wouldn't ride. He would take either a different route, or he would walk on the side of the road so that they could pass by without being ashamed. And some of the expressions that we until use today when we want to pray, when there's this little prayer, we say, Ya Muhsan qad ataka al-musi, if you had heard people say that. These are the words that the Imam would say in the mosque of the Prophet when he would start praying. And he would be very long in his sujood, and he's basically re-establishing the truths and the spirit that the Holy Prophet and that Imam Ali alayhi salam put in place. And he did this day in and day out while in Medina. What did this do? The Imam is basically creating a foundation, a social base of people, because they had run out of those people, they had all been killed, there's not enough of them anymore, of people who understand the spirit of Islam. And this is the reality of the work, the majority of the work of the Holy Prophet and of Imam Ali alayhi salam. This is the charity, this is the struggle, this is the jihad, this is the showing people how they're supposed to be with each other, showing the people how they're supposed to spread knowledge, how to have spirituality, and so on and so forth. In the meantime, if we go back to Muawiyah was tracking down every person who was known to maybe have aspired to become a Khalifa after Muawiyah and to take the Khilafah instead of Yazid. And if we look at history, all of them were poisoned, one after the other. Malik al-Ashtar, one after the other, they were all poisoned. Muawiyah sent poison to them through their families, friends, spies, so that he would eliminate them. The most dangerous of those people to the Umayyad at that time was Imam al Hasan. Why? First of all, he had already been Khalifa, and his father was Khalifa. 1. 2, he put in place a treaty where the condition was that he would automatically become the Khalifa after Muawiyah. 3, he was now establishing an entire generation of people in the Medina who were now becoming followers and lovers of Ahl al-Bayt again. And those were the people who were now going to be ready. If the Imam says, let's go to war, of course they're going to go to war. And that army will be different than the army that he had, where everybody's following their own desires and whims. So of course, Muawiyah worked his ways, and he called Ju'dah bint al-Ash'ath ibn Qais, who was the wife of the Imam, and he gave her poison, and he promised her that if she could poison the Imam, he would give her gifts, and he would marry her to his son Yazid. So she went and put the poison, they say, on a very hot day while the Imam was fasting, in yogurt or milk, and when the Imam drank it, he knew right away that he was going to pass away. And then Ju'dah went back to Muawiyah to get her gifts, and Muawiyah gave her gifts, and then he told her, leave now. And she wouldn't leave, and she said, well, you promised me that you would marry me to your son, Yazid. And he said, well, if the son of Ali and Fatima, the grandson of the Prophet, was your husband, and this is how you treated him, then what are you going to do with Yazid? And he chased her away from the castle. Imam al Hasan alayhi salam, when Imam al Hussein came by, he cried when he saw him about to die. Imam al Hasan told him, do not worry, it's a little bit of poison, and then I will pass away, and you will become the Imam. But you, Abu Abdullah, you will be attacked by 30,000 of those who claim to be followers of your grandfather's religion, and they will kill you while you are thirsty and hungry. In any case, the Imam also, Imam al Hasan alayhi salam, told his brother, Imam al Hussein, he told him, I want to be buried beside the grave of my grandfather. If that is not possible, and it will not be possible, then ensure that there will not be more than the size of a purse of bloodshed as a result of my grave or my burial. And the Imam knew what was going to happen. So Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, with the procession of Bani Hashim, they took the corpse of Imam al-Hasan to the grave of the Holy Prophet. At that time, Aisha and her followers came out, and they refused to allow Imam al-Hasan to be buried beside the Holy Prophet. And because at that time the Holy Prophet was considered to be buried in one of the rooms of the house that was under the control of Aisha. So anyways, and at that time they say the arrows started to come, and at least one arrow hit the corpse of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. So Imam al-Hussein retreated, and he came back to, today we call it Jannat al-Baqi', to the Baqi', which if you go to the pilgrimage, you will see the distance between al-Baqi', the graves of 4 holy Imams now, and the distance between that and the grave of the Holy Prophet. This is the distance that Imam al-Hussein came back, and this is where he buried his brother Imam al Hasan alayhi salam. I'll stop here for the life of our second Imam, Imam al Hasan alayhi salam. And maybe just in the last maybe 1 minute or two, a reminder for all of us that we are about to reach, we're just past the midpoint of Shahr Ramadan. This is a reminder for myself before it is for you guys. Tomorrow, inshallah, and the days after, we begin Layali al-Qadr, the holiest nights and the holiest month in Shahr Ramadan. The Holy Prophet told us before coming into this month, he said that this holy month is the opportunity of opportunities. Our sleep in it is worship. Our breaths are tasbih. Every breath is a tasbih. The devils cannot seduce anyone because they are chained. The doors of hell are closed. And the loser in this world, the Holy Prophet says, is the one who will leave this month without having wiped out all his sins. This is an opportunity of opportunities. We're on day 17. Maybe there was an excuse, there's still 2 weeks left. All we need in those few days left, especially in Layali al-Qadr, and there are 3 of them, and that's a whole topic why there are more than one. Let's just say for now, it's 3 chances instead of 1 for us to look back at our lives, at our sins, to ask for God's forgiveness, to decide what kind of human being we want to be when this month will end. And we know, inshallah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has accepted our repentance and we have asked for forgiveness, and Allah has given it to us. So let us assume that we are starting fresh. We're starting with a blank slate at the end of this month and the beginning of the new month. So knowing this, all it takes from us, and there are a lot of rituals and a'mal in those 3 nights, There is reading Quran, there is ad'iyah, dua al-jawshan, dua raf al-masahif, when you pick up the Quran on your head, ziyarat Imam al Hasan. There is a ghusl where you shower with the intention of asking for God's forgiveness. And these are all important. You pray 100 ruk'ah every night. Very important, all of them. Try to do as many of them as you can. But try to also find the time where you have a moment of introspection and thinking and reflection, between yourself and your God. And decide when you leave this month what kind of human being you will be, what kind of relationship you're going to have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with the Holy Quran, with Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, with people in your community, and with the world in general. This is a chance. We can blank slate, we start anew. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, I am the most merciful of the merciful, I give you this chance. Let's seize this chance and not waste it. There are 2 weeks left in Shahr Ramadan, and if we believe in the Holy Prophet's words, he's telling us it is measured by the breath. There's a lot of breaths left in these 2 weeks. Each one of them can be the moment where we make this willful act, this commitment, this decision that this is the moment in our lives where we change everything if we want to. And the last of our words is salawat upon our Holy Prophet Muhammad and the purified members of his household and country.